Kevin, can I start?
Yeah.
Good, okay. I don't really have an opening statement, but practice is going well. Players' attitudes have been really good, energetic, and we'll work out today, tomorrow, Sunday, and let the players go home. Then they'll meet us at the bowl site, and we'll have what would be a normal week's routine of practice in Dallas, and then we're looking forward to playing in the game. And our players are very excited about being here, which it's one of the points I'd mentioned a week ago, that obviously in a bowl game it's vital that the team wants to be there and wants to compete, and they've practiced really well over the last week.
Is that why you've been pretty successful in bowl games in your careers, because you've had the teams that really wanted to be there?
I'm not sure if anybody really knows. I think that we have a good formula and a good practice plan, which allows the players to get healthy. It allows them to refresh themselves mentally, coaches, and I think it puts them in a better state of mind, and they feel better about competing in the game.
Mike, which side of the ball suffers the most with the layoff, offense or defense?
I don't really think any side for the most part. We give them 5 days off and we're back at it. We practice so much now, and our schemes are minimized, and it's all high rep. Most of what we do has been done over and over, so I don't really feel like that any phase suffers like it used to be years ago.
Quarterbacks say it's been good having you in the meeting room and working with you, but they're all a little hesitant to correct you on anything. They say nobody's jumping up to say, Coach, I think we do it that way. So,
I think that's probably a smart move on their part. But no, I've enjoyed being in there with them, and the offense has been somewhat fascinating to me, and so it's been a good week. It's been fun, a lot of hours, and in fact I thought about grabbing a Red Bull when I came in here today, like the old days. But it's been a good week, and I've enjoyed spending some time with them and being involved with them at practice.
Were you off the Red Bull?
For the most part. I got off it when I quit calling plays, and so I've stayed off the Red Bull, but my hours have increased considerably over the last week to 10 days, which is fine, but there's a lot more work involved, that's for sure.
a lot of coffee.
Some coffee, yeah.
So how exactly is the play calling going to work? I mean, who gets the final say?
Well, we've got a plan that we're almost we'll have completed here by Sunday, and we'll have it broke down based on position on the field, and we'll make a play call, and there'll be conversation that goes on with the coaches on the headphones, and then the quarterback has to make that determination once we give him the play.
Coach, Purdue is someone this program doesn't play that often. What do you enjoy about getting to play a team like that, and it's a challenge in preparation?
Well, each team we play that's out of the league is interesting, because we have to try to take the concepts that they've used during the year in 12 games and practice the ones that we feel like that they'll want to use in the game versus us, and prepare our players for it. In our conference play, we have a good feel for how people feel about us, the way they want to attack us, and so we don't have to put as much time into it. In the most counts, we're correct based on playing teams year in and year out.
Mike, no disappointment at all among your players or your coaching staff or anyone that you're in this bowl? A year ago you were in the Fiesta Bowl. Is there any kind of letdown other than, wish you'd won more games, something like that? Well,
I think they all wish we'd won more games, coaches and players included. But as I said a while back, I think there was a letdown once they initially received the information, because it's only human nature that when you think you're at a certain level in somebody's opinion and then you're not there, it's only human nature. It doesn't have anything to do with the heart of the Dallas Bowl. But they're way past that. They've practiced well. They've had a chance to spend time together, and they'll get to spend 5 to 6 quality days down in Dallas together. So I don't feel like that's an issue at this point.
Is that an issue that this school, the athletic department, needs to address to make sure that in the future, you have a little better grasp of where you're going to go and not get into a situation where on Sunday afternoon you're free falling, basically?
John, I don't really have a feel for how that works. I'm not in on those phone calls. I'm not in on that information. You hear two sides of it. You guys probably hear the same. I think that's a question that needs to be directed to the conference, and they need to give an answer to exactly how bowl slots are filled. But I'm going to guess the response that you're going to get is that the bowls that are tied in with our league pay a certain amount of money, and they have the opportunity to select who they want in those bowls. Now, how much jockeying for position is going on behind the scenes, I can't answer that question.
Missouri addressed that a couple of years ago. They got mad. A couple of years they got tossed into bowls they didn't think they were going to get into. And I was wondering if you guys had talked to Missouri or Coach Holder or someone in your athletic department had addressed that issue to say, how did this happen, and
well,
how to make sure it doesn't happen again?
Well, I addressed the issue this year, but I guess to answer your question, anything that goes on prior to the selections, I've never been involved in as a coach. Now, if there's something that's going on that I don't know about, then I haven't gotten that response from our administration or the conference.
Mike, how good is Purdue? They seem to be a team that their two shining moments came in defeat. They played Ohio State tough and Notre Dame tough.
The interesting comparison with us and Purdue is that there's times during the season when they played really well, and then there's times that I'm going to guess that they feel like that they didn't play as well as they'd want to. And they fall into that group of teams across the country that when they took care of the football and made some chunk plays and played hard, they were pretty competitive. And again, couldas and shouldas in college football, but they had Ohio State beat at their stadium. I mean, they went the length of the field in like 37 seconds with no timeouts, and then got a 2-point conversion. Prior to that, Ohio State hadn't moved the ball the entire day, in my opinion. And the same with the other team, Notre Dame. And so then there's other games where they fell behind and were playing catch up and probably didn't feel as good about the way they started the game. But what you said is correct. So our players understand that, and they've seen the tape, and they know we have to prepare and start fast.
Their quarterback, Marv, is playing hurt, apparently. But he made some overtures about coming here. And Bill Young was a DC at Miami when he started. So you guys have got a pretty good knowledge, I would imagine, on him.
Well, just his history, and there's times during the year when he's played really well. And if he gets in the groove, he's made plays. And obviously he's been injured at times. And the state of his health right now, I'm not sure, but he's very capable of making plays.
Purdue's coaching staff obviously is in a lot of turmoil right now. I mean, they're kind of the interim staff. Does that give you guys an advantage at all, or does it really matter?
Well, I'd answer this question the other day. I'm not so sure who has an advantage. When you lose a coordinator like we have, I lost a quarterback coach, an organizer on offense, and a play caller. I don't know what their situation is. I don't know how many of their coaches are still coaching, how many have gotten jobs. I hadn't kept up with that. I'm not a fan of either situation, and I don't want to get into that again, but I expressed my opinion on how I feel about coaching change prior to a bowl game. If we're going to keep the integrity and the bowls actually matter, then we need to take a serious look at we want to make coaching changes before all these bowl games are being played. Because ultimately the student athlete's the one that fail. They're the ones that get the short end of the stick because they don't get that year back. If I'm a senior at a school, my coaches change, that's my senior year. That's it. I may go into a bowl with 4 or 5 coaches on my staff, and that's it.
Is that something the AFCA would have to step in and talk about?
Grant Taff is a pretty powerful force. He's worked side by side with the NCAA, and I would think that would be an issue that they need to put front. It's been discussed before, but nobody's ever really given the importance of what's happening now. It's increasing each year, and so that's just my opinion.
And all the talk of what Coach Monken leaving, Coach Young's, you're aware of what he said. Everyone knows that you've looked around. Is that How do players react to that stuff, or is it they just consider it part of the business?
Well, I think that they're better off with a coach. For example, the head coach, they got their own daily operation going. A coordinator can affect them more because he's the coach, the play caller, and the organizer of that side of the ball.
Can you kind of reiterate for us why you decided to go with Chelf and quarterback?
Well, he's played well at the end of the year and deserves to be there. And we have a package for JW, and we just think that because of the way things transpired during the season, that he deserves to start the bowl game.
Does the quarterback decision have anything to do with next season? Quarterback outlook.
No, we didn't take that into consideration for the bowl. Again, I go back to, in a bowl game like this, the most important part of it is the seniors. And we have to think about what's best for them and then think about next year after the bowl game.
Coach, Clint summed up this entire season with the quarterback shuffle and rumors of you leaving and you staying and Monken leaving, and Monken's actually with everything, he summed it up as a roller coaster. Would you say that that's accurate, and maybe what would be the one word you would describe this season with?
Well, I think a roller coaster is a good way to describe it. That's before Monken left or anything happened with me. When you go through a league play with 3 different quarterbacks playing, you're in an emotional roller coaster with your football team. It's not just a quarterback. It's the reps in practice. It's the players on offense, and it's human nature to think that maybe this guy should be playing or maybe a different quarterback should be playing. So overall, I said this at the end, I thought our coaches did a great job of handling it, and I thought our players, not just the quarterbacks, but the other players did a great job of being team guys and not separating and picking a side. And so it's not an easy year, but that's the way it happens. Sometimes things don't work the way you want them to, but you have to do the best you can to make it successful. And I think in the situation that those coaches and those players were in, they were successful throughout the season.
Did you enjoy this season?
Oh, yeah. I enjoy every one of them, and whenever I get to a point that I don't enjoy it, then I'll stop doing it. But the challenge that we faced this year with some younger players at key positions, and then certainly the quarterback rotation, even though it's not as easy and not as fun because there's more hours and more time, more decisions that have to be made, it's still challenging. It's an exciting time for me. And we look forward to that each year. We look forward to the new team and creating that team chemistry and that togetherness, because ultimately in college football, if you're going to stay for a long time and you're going to be successful as a coaching staff, you're going to have more than just the players and what they do on game day. You're going to have some real core values in your system, and we have that now. And so that's how our players and team is allowed, or can have as much success as they do, and things don't go our way.
Is it frustrating having to replace offensive coordinator every other year? Is it a good problem to have in that you're hiring good coaches?
Well, I think it's a good problem to have, but it's frustrating because it doesn't just affect one person. It affects a number of people, and it affects recruiting. So it's difficult because you can, but I choose to not make it happen a few days after we lose a coach. And so for that reason, it can affect our team, it can affect our staff, it can affect our recruiting. So it's not easy, but other coordinators that come in here and guys on our staff, ultimately, most of them want to be head coaches. And if we provide them that opportunity and they come through Oklahoma State, then we're doing something right. The athletic directors and the presidents that are making decisions on hiring head coaches, they're buying into our system here. Because when you hire a head coach, you don't just hire him for his X's and O's. You have to hire him for his background and what he believes in, and that's generally the system he comes out of. And so for that reason, obviously people like what we're doing here.
Can you address the kind of response you've had on that? I know you're probably not working it right now because of everything else, but the calls you get that you don't take that are interested in that job.
I mean, I'm sure there's a number of them, but they don't even pass them on to me. So I just tell them don't pass them on to me to after the bowl game, because it's just like what Todd said. It's a distraction. You can only do. We have a responsibility to focus on our players, our seniors, and our team, and I can't multitask enough to think about hiring a coach and also the team. I can't do it at the same time. So I haven't gotten any information on that.
Mike, you talked about core values of your program and them being established. And I think that certainly relates to team identity. How much did the rotation of quarterbacks really affect your team identity this year and guys knowing who they really were?
I think it's positive and negative. Negative meaning that when you develop a starting quarterback and he's there for a number of games, your team kind of starts to mold and follow him, just like Whedon and just like Zach. That's just college football. Maybe the NFL, and I know, in fact, high school. I've been in those two levels. I hadn't been in the NFL, but when that changes, you lose a little bit of your identity. I mean, and it's just different. And that's why I stressed how I thought they did a great job of kind of molding each week and competing, and it's not always easy to do. And again, we keep beating it, and talking about it, but how many other schools have played third-team quarterbacks and had success in this league over the last 5 or 6 years? So I'm giving the credit to the team and to those guys for rallying together as a group.
Can you look back and address Josh Stewart and what kind of performance he's given this team this year as being, I mean, if you were a running back, you'd have been a 30-carry-a-game kind of guy.
Josh likes to play football. He's tough. He competes. We worry about whether he runs too much in practice because we have a lot for him in the game, and he's a really good football player, and he's going to play this game for quite a while because he has those key ingredients in longevity in this game. He really likes to play the game, and weather doesn't affect him, and fatigue doesn't affect him, and being bumped up, having bumps and bruises, those things don't affect him. And he's developed into really a quiet leader because he doesn't say a lot. He just plays.
What does Cooper Bassett meant to this team? I mean, he's a guy obviously talented, goes from tight end to defensive.
Yeah, tight end, defensive tackle, defensive end. And one thing I mentioned to the team when we talked about Cooper is that the energy level and the leadership, the toughness, and the team concept that he brings is very important to the success of our football team. You have to have players that fit his role, and he's been really good for us.
Mike, you talked about the frustration of what's going on with coaching changes, and and you're having to deal with a lot of things right now. Are you still able to appreciate the fact that you're playing in a bowl game? I mean, and then you guys were in the Fiesta Bowl a year ago. Do you still? Because a lot of people would say there are too many bowl games. Do you still appreciate, and is that message with your team that you're still playing for something?
There's no question that that message has been conveyed to the team. I coached 11 years without ever getting into a bowl. Never coached on a winning team. So you learn to appreciate winning and being in a bowl game, because ultimately that's the reward for the team and the families and the wives and the children and everybody. And I think I need to clarify, I'm not frustrated at the coaching change. I'm very happy for Todd Monken and Dana and Larry and Beck. I'm frustrated at the system overall when I see how it's happening and it's affecting so many young men across the country. That's what I'm frustrated at. And so with what's transpired here, it's almost like complaining about the BCS. We signed up for it, so however it works out, that's the way it is. Well, right now we're signed up for the way the system is. For if a guy's not doing good, they let him go, and they start trying to get a replacement coach as soon as possible. And until somebody corrects that, it's only going to get increasingly worse over the next few years. That's why I express those opinions.
Mike, you got Florida State. Y'all announced that game for 2 years now. That's the year that there's going to be 4 slots open in the national championship hunt instead of 2. I understand there's a lot of risk involved, but do you think the reward in that game because of what's going to be happening that year might outweigh the risks?
No. I mean, it's, you know, again, I don't want to get into the scheduling. I think I've expressed my opinion, and it's one thing that I don't have to talk about anymore, but it's interesting, the different opinions that are out there. I listen to the local radio station when I drive in the mornings. I think it's called the Morning Scramble, because they have like the superintendent of schools on there, and people talk about gardening.
Some guy from Perry on there too.
No, it's good stuff, really. And the senator, state senator, and former President Haugen's on there. And so it's really good for me, because during that 7-minute drive, I can find out kind of what's going on in Stillwater. So I enjoy it. Well, sometimes if I go to lunch, I jump in my car or go run an errand, and it's still on, and I'll hear things. And most of the time I don't listen to it during the afternoon. And today I heard a 30-minute segment, and obviously I think it was Mississippi State game they were talking about. And I don't know who was. I don't even know who's on there, but somebody said it was funny for the recruiting, for the football team, for this, for that. There's no question that's the best thing to do. I was like, wow, guy knows a lot about our program. I'd like to know where he's getting his information, but it's pretty interesting. But the scheduling aspect of what we do has been discussed. We're playing Mississippi State next year. We're playing Florida State the next year, and really that's the way it is.
Well, no matter the pros or cons of it, it seems to me, Mike, that one benefit is an event that's had Michigan, Alabama, Oregon, LSU, Florida State, and says, hey, come to our party. I mean, to me, it's a sign of the elevation of your program.
There's no question. We've had those opportunities, Barry. You're exactly right on that. Is that we're going to have an opportunity to play in games that of that style for the next however many years. Now, there's no question about that.
Let me ask you a question. We know your preference, but if you're going to play Florida State, do you prefer a game in Arlington, or would you like a home and home like you had with Georgia?
Well, neither really helps me, because I'd rather play a game at home. And it was interesting on the radio. I mean, that's another thing I heard him say today when I was driving, that other than losing the money to the local merchants in town, it's just a home game. Well, if you look back at the history over us the last 3 or 4 years, we play pretty good at home. So it's not just a home game. It's an opportunity to be here in front of our friends, in front of our family, recruits. We have a home recruiting game. There's just a lot of advantages in being at home. And so and that's one of the issues that I had discussed with Coach and you guys, is that I don't like giving up a home game. I would rather play here for all the reasons. And there's, just so everybody knows, in recruiting, there's nothing better than a home game. There's not anything that's more effective than bringing a young man to your campus, letting him see your campus, letting him be around your crowd. He sees the tailgating. We have 35,000 people that tailgate now. He gets in the stadium. It's loud. It's one of the most exciting home field advantage football stadiums in the country, in my opinion. There are some that are bigger, but it's not the same as it is here. And when you bring a recruit in and he sits in there and watches it, and this is me going off my last 3 or 4 years here, however many years we've been playing in this stadium, when I visit with them after the game, and they could be from South Texas, or they could be from Georgia, or they could be from wherever, and they're like, whoa, I didn't know it was like this on a home game. This place is really, I mean, this is an awesome setting. Well, when they've said that multiple times, then that tells me a home game's pretty important.
What's the rule on the neutral site? Like
I think you alternate.
I mean, but you're playing Mississippi State.
Right, so I don't know yet. We hadn't got that far. But, and I may be speaking out of turn here, I think Texas and OU alternates, Barry, and I don't know.
Yeah, they do.
Okay.
But I wondered, like, you're not playing Mississippi
My
State.
guess is neutral site, you probably cannot recruit. They'll probably wipe it. They will probably
Neither team gets to.
that would be my
What's the rule
guess.
in the bowl?
No, can't recruit.
No recruits at the bowl.
Right, so we'll probably lose that game, would be my guess.
I'm going to ask you to go back a few years when you were a kid. What was your favorite?
Few years?
Yeah, just a few.
You don't remember the rant? I mean, it's been longer than that.
I'm not much younger than you. What was your favorite Christmas present growing up, and what made it so special?
Well, Christmas to me was special because, you know, with your children. You know, I never really quit believing in that day, and whenever somebody finally convinced me of it, it was tough for me to ever take. But when I was about, golly, I don't know, 7 or 8, they had, you know, we had those prehistoric video games that were just coming out, and there was one that was a baseball game. You know, it was like the little ball. They're about that big and about that thick. And it was a baseball game, and it was deep, 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 and you had to time it up and hit it. And you could, it was, if you were any good at all, you always did well. Well, I was fired up when I got that, because when I would drive around in the back of the van, when I was a kid going to my games and stuff, I'd sit in there and play that. And then obviously the parents were happy because I didn't talk. Just sat there and played the video game. So
That's Sega, I think.
something, yeah, long time ago.
Did you ever play football with?
Mm-hmm. Sure did. Where you had to run the dotted line and move. There was three levels. Sure did.
I love that game.
Yeah. So you guys know what I'm talking about. I mean, this has been a very reminiscent day for me to visit with you guys about old video games. And Tom Holliday came over and visited with me in my office. Brings back a lot of good memories.
I go back to electric football where you turned it on and it vibrated.
I had one of those too. Zzz, yeah. And they used to say you couldn't wad them all up. That was against the rules.
Yeah.
Put your guy in the middle and wad them all up, and it did like that. I played that game.
I repainted all the teams for Big 8 schools.
You did?
Yeah, they weren't NFL.
You were playing the vibrating game and had no helmets.
Yeah.
So.
Was I good?
Good? All right, it's going downhill now, kids.